Namaste, Mabuhay, and a very good evening to all of you. And welcome back to the day two of our online lecture series organized by the Embassy of India to mark Ayurveda Day. Today, we have with us Ms. Niti Sheth. Niti began her journey in health while studying nutrition, media, and communication at the Queensland University of Technology in Australia. Her education and research prompted her to look beyond conventional Western nutrition. It was a 1 day seminar on Ayurvedic nutrition that made her delve deeper into the science of Ayurveda. After graduating from university, Niti traveled to India and studied at the world renowned Vaidyagram, an Ayurvedic healing village in the southern part of India. Since then, she has been living her passion through various workshops, cooking demonstrations, expos, and also through her social media handles. Today, Niti is going to talk about Ayurveda, the roots of good health. So, without any further ado, the screen is all yours, Niti.
Perfect. Thank you, Vishwanjali. Thank you so much to the Indian Embassy in the Philippines for having me here today. Before I begin any talk on Ayurveda or any treatment or anything, I always like to pay tribute to Lord Dhanvantari, who you can see behind me. Incidentally, this is in honor of World Ayurveda Day, which always falls on the appearance or the birthday of Dhanvantari, the day that he appeared. So if you're watching wherever you are, I invite you to just fold your palms, close your eyes, and take in the sound vibrations of these ancient Vedic mantras in honor of Lord Dhanvantari. Namami Dhanvantari Madi Devam Surasurair Vandita Pada Padmam Loke Jararughayatyunasham Dhataramisham Vividhoshadinam Om Jnanati Mirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So I'm really excited and honored to be sharing with you a little bit about Ayurveda for World Ayurveda Day. And before I begin, I want to share a little bit that I know in Tagalog, which was taught to me by some friends many, many years ago. So, ang pangalan ko ay Niti. My name is Niti. And as Vishwanjali mentioned, I'm an Ayurvedic therapist and practitioner. I'm now based in the UK. But as she said, I studied in university in Australia. I studied nutrition. And when I studied nutrition, it was really nice. I wanted to get into the field of health and medicine, but I didn't want to spend 6 years doing a medical degree to become a doctor. So nutrition was very appealing to me because I love food, I love to eat, and I thought how to combine those two. And when I studied nutrition in university, I found it was very detail oriented. You had to know about all the different vitamins and minerals. So vitamin A, B, C, D, K, all the different minerals like fat, carbohydrates, proteins. And then you had to know, okay, how much should each person take? There would be different recommendations for women of a certain age, different recommendations for men. What happens if you take too little? What happens if you take too much? The exact amount to take. And it was a lot of focus on detail. There were a lot of numbers to remember. And it was fulfilling. But then I sat in on a 1-hour seminar on Ayurvedic nutrition. And everything just clicked. It was just 1 hour, but everything just made sense. Ayurveda teaches us these basic principles of life, which we can apply to practically everything. So once you understand these foundational principles, you can apply them to any situation to help balance out what you're feeling, to help balance out if you're feeling excess anger in your mind, if you're feeling lethargy in your body, if you're feeling really anxious, whatever it is that you're feeling, with a understanding of the basic concepts of Ayurveda, you're good to go. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about Ayurveda, about how you can utilize it in your daily life. Yoga is becoming popular all over the world. You see yoga studios pop up left, right, and center. People are doing yoga trainings to teach other people how to practice yoga. Yoga is great. Yoga is practice that has originated in India for the body and the mind. Ayurveda is a sister science of yoga. It takes into account your health. It takes into account what you're eating, how you're eating, all the different herbs and their properties that have been left here for us, and how we can utilize them to experience the best health. It originated in India thousands of years ago. And like I mentioned, tomorrow is World Ayurveda Day in honor of Lord Dhanvantari. Sorry, the screen's flipped. Who is the founder of Ayurveda? He brought medicine down for us. And Ayurveda teaches us, as the tagline of today's topic suggests, it's the roots of good health. Ayurveda is not a one-size-fits-all approach. It takes into account the individual. It takes into account all the differences that you may have compared to the next person, compared to different family members. Even though you have siblings that are born of the same mother and father, you may be very uniquely different. Ayurveda takes this all into account. Ayurveda looks at addressing your health from the root cause. It looks at addressing disease from the root cause. So when we often go to a Western medical doctor, we will get medication, we will get remedies, we will get some protocol to follow, mainly to address the symptoms that we're experiencing. Whenever you visit an Ayurvedic doctor or physician, they will always assess what's going inside your body, inside your mind, inside your emotions, and look to balancing out your health from the root cause. So if you went, for example, just for a skin condition, if you had eczema or psoriasis, they wouldn't just give you a topical application, a cream or an oil to put on to, calm and soothe that inflamed skin. They would take a deeper look at your life, look at what you're eating, how you're living, in effort to address the root cause of those skin imbalances that are presenting. Ayurveda is very holistic. It takes into account the complete individual, mind, body, soul, emotions, everything. It takes into account what your living situation is like, and then health can be adjusted or altered accordingly. A big part of Ayurveda, obviously, is nutrition, like it is for a big part of any particular healthcare system. And rather than just looking at nutrition as what it is that you're eating, Ayurveda goes again one step further and looks at nutrition, not just what you're eating, but also how you're eating, why you're eating, when you're eating, and where you're eating. So today I'm going to discuss in detail a little bit more about each of those topics to do with nutrition, to do with food, and give you practical ways in which you can apply it. While Ayurveda is a vast body of knowledge, to become an Ayurvedic doctor, you study in India for over 5 to 6 years, and then you're qualified, you practice, and then you start to assimilate and understand the knowledge of Ayurveda. But I don't want you to think of Ayurveda as this archaic, unreachable science. Ayurveda, in fact, is very applicable. You can take small steps every day, little changes in your lifestyle, in your diet, in your behavior, in the way you live. And over time, you'll see profound changes and impacts in your health. So don't look at Ayurveda as this really big body of work, something that is totally not relatable to you. Look at Ayurveda of how you can adopt it and apply it to your life. So firstly, let's look at nutrition of what to eat. From a Western point of view, we learn of nutrition as, like I mentioned before, proteins, fats, carbohydrates, vitamins, minerals, and it can all be a little confusing. It can be lots of things to remember. From an Ayurvedic view, I'm going to give you 6 fundamental things to remember in terms of Ayurvedic nutrition. And these are the 6 tastes. Now, taste is something that we can all perceive, whether we're a 5-year-old child or a 50-year-old adult. Everybody has this functionality of taste. Hopefully, it's covered if you've had COVID or something like that. But taste is something that we all have, and we can all utilize and gauge what we're eating. So Ayurvedic nutrition means having 6 tastes in equal proportion every single day. Now, what are the 6 tastes? So the 6 tastes, the first one, sweet. Everybody knows the sweet taste, and most people love the sweet taste, right? You can have chocolates, sweets. Diwali is coming up, so I'm sure there'll be lots of gulab jamuns and pendas and jalebis and things like that being fried up at home. You can have the sweet taste even in certain vegetables. For example, sweet potatoes and pumpkin, they contribute towards the sweet taste. Dairy products also have a sweet taste. If you drink milk, that is naturally sweet. Many whole grains have a sweet taste, like wheat. Rice has a sweet taste as well. And then you've got natural sweeteners like honey, maple syrup, palm sugar, jaggery, coconut sugar. All of these are natural sweeteners. So when you're looking to include the sweet taste in your diet, it shouldn't be too much of a problem because I'm sure it'll be a natural part of everyone's diet anyway. Try to look for and include the more unprocessed and unrefined types of sweet taste. So have more of the sweet vegetables. Potatoes have a sweet taste. Have more sweet potatoes, pumpkin, more good quality dairy, whole wheat, and some of the natural sweetness. The second taste is salty, right? And salty is this taste that it elevates the taste of everything else in the meal. You can make an amazing meal with lots of different spices, but if you forget one ingredient, the salt, then the whole meal is kind of bland. It's just a bit lackluster. But the minute you add salt to the meal, it brings out the flavor of everything else. In the same way, salt is very important in your diet, but like sugar, like the sweet taste, making sure you have a really natural and unprocessed version of salt. So not looking to satisfy that salty craving from chips or crisps or fried foods, anything oily. You know, we like that sweet taste from, we sort of crave that salty taste with foods like that. Just look to adding a little bit of natural salt to what you eat, using Himalayan salt, rock salt. In Ayurveda, there's Saindhava salt, natural sea salt, all of these different types. Even seaweed or nori has that salty taste. So looking to incorporate saltiness in your diet through those forms. Then you've got sour. So sour is very obviously from certain fruits and vegetables, certain fruits like lemons, limes, tamarind also has that sour taste, many citrus fruits. And again, rather than looking for sourness from, say, tamarind candy or those sour lollies or sour jelly fruits, look to including that sour taste from things like lemons and limes. Limes are also a little bit less acidic than lemons. So if you suffer from acidity or gastritis or heartburn, look to incorporating more limes into your diet than lemons. So those first three tastes, salty, sweet, and sour, they're very common in all of our diets. Wherever we're from in the world, whether we're from the Philippines, India, America, Australia, the UK, France, Africa, those three tastes are very easily incorporated because they tend to be a natural part of the food that we eat. Those tastes also are associated with certain emotions. So when you have a lot of sweet food, or when you are celebrating something, you do it with something sweet. You know, when there's a birthday, we celebrate with cake. When it's Diwali, we celebrate with traditional Indian sweets. So certain tastes are synonymous and they go well with particular emotions. Sometimes when you are really emotional, when you're feeling down, when you're feeling maybe a little bit depressed, and you want to pick yourself up, what taste do you go towards? You go towards a sweet taste because that's what satisfies that craving, that emotional need in your life. So when you're eating, for example, too much of a particular sweet, too much of a particular taste, it may mean that you're lacking that particular emotion in your life. So when people are eating too much sweet, which is always the common thing, sweetness, that joy, sweetness brings that love, that contentment, that satisfaction. So rather than trying to always fulfill it through food, look to fulfilling that sweetness through something else. Maybe it's taking a walk out in nature. Maybe it's spending time with a friend or a loved one. Maybe it's doing something just for yourself, not anyone else. It could be reading a book, taking a bath, whatever it is. if you find yourself always reaching out for a particular taste, whether it's sweet, salty, or sour, then make sure that those particular emotions are always filled in your life as well. At the very end, when I finish discussing about all the 6 tastes, I will also relate what emotions they are connected with. So we've covered sweet, sour, and salty. Now the last three tastes are bitter, pungent, and astringent. So the bitter taste is something that we don't generally want to have. We're not generally drawn towards the bitter taste. And that's because it may not be very pleasant to the eye. It may not be very pleasant to the tongue, to the taste buds. But bitterness is something that we need in our diet. Ayurveda says have the 6 tastes in equal quantities every day. So you can get bitterness from certain spices. You can get bitterness from vegetables like bitter melon, rocket leaves, certain leafy greens have that bitter taste. Turmeric and turmeric root, they also have that bitter taste. You can get from many of the spices have that bitter profile as well. So it's important to incorporate those spices in your daily diet. The second to last one is pungent. So pungent is like that spicy taste. Now, spicy doesn't just mean chilies. You don't get that heat only from chilies. You can add spice to your life. You can add that pungency to your life with other herbs like black pepper, ginger. Certain vegetables will also give you that pungent and spicy taste. Imagine eating a radish. You get that aftertaste of a bit of spice. So it's important to incorporate natural and unprocessed fruits and vegetables which have that pungent taste in your diet. And the last one is astringent. Astringent is a strange sensation. It's like it gives almost a puckering taste in your mouth. When you eat something that's astringent, you'll feel really thirsty afterwards. It sort of draws water away. Green bananas or plantains have an astringent taste. A turmeric root also has an astringent taste. Pomegranate is slightly astringent. So look to incorporating some of these foods into your diet to get a complete nutritional profile. So you want to get enough sweet, you want to get enough sour, you want to get enough salty, enough bitter, pungent, and astringent. Now, as I mentioned before, the sweet, sour, and salty, it's very natural to have that in your diet. We don't have to make any effort to include those 3 tastes in our diet. So what you can focus on moving forward is you can search up, and it's available in many places, what foods comprise the bitter, pungent, and astringent taste. Make a list of them, see what's available in your locality, in your local supermarkets and markets, and make an effort to include them and incorporate them in your daily meals. Ayurvedic food does not equal Indian food, right? Ayurveda, while it originated in India, is not just meant for the people of India. Ayurveda is meant for all humans, for all souls. There's even chapters in Ayurveda on how to treat different animals. So when you think of Ayurvedic food, don't think that it has to be curries or sabjis, it has to be dals, it has to be khichdi. Yes, sometimes it is easier to make Indian food Ayurvedic, but you can very easily make something Ayurvedic if you use the right spices, if you're eating it according to your constitution. There's no table or list of things that you need to tick off to see if a food is Ayurvedic. There's not a list of foods that says, yes, this is Ayurvedic, no, this is not. What it means by food being Ayurvedic, how does it suit you? How does it suit your body? How are you eating it, right? What may be Ayurvedic for me may not be Ayurvedic for somebody else because it may not suit someone else well. In Ayurveda, nothing is demonized, nothing is glamorized. I remember when I was studying in Vietnam in 2012, at the end of my 3-month course, one of the doctors, he came and asked me, he said, what did you learn in your 3 months of study? And I sat there and I scratched my head and I said, okay, I learned about the 3 doshas, I learned about the 20 gunas, I started reeling off all of these names. And he said, no, he said, stop. He said, if you met someone on the street who didn't know anything about Ayurveda, what would you tell them? And then I had to stop, and I thought, and I thought, I don't know. What would I tell them, in a conversation? And he said, you learned 3 things. He said, number 1 is know your digestion, right? So when you know your digestion, when you know what suits you, what doesn't suit you, you can know what to eat. You can know what's good for you to eat and what doesn't really agree with you. He said, number 2, nothing in this world is universally good or universally bad. So sometimes in modern health, we will see one particular ingredient or one particular food, and we will really praise it. We will say, blueberries, they're the best. They're full of antioxidants. They're the new superfood. Have blueberries all the time. Or avocados will be the next thing. Avocados are a healthy fat. They're, good for your body. Eat avocados, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But Ayurveda says nothing in this world is universally good or universally bad. Just because blueberries are good doesn't mean that you eat them all day, every day, right? And then the third point that he mentioned follows all along from the second one. He said everything in moderation. So yes, blueberries are good, but have them in moderation. At the same token as glamorizing certain foods, we also don't want to demonize certain foods. So people may say, oh, chocolate is bad or coffee is bad. It may not suit some people. It may suit you at particular times. So you should take that into accordance. You should take that into consideration when you're about to eat chocolate or have coffee. Nothing in this world is universally good or universally bad. We just need to learn to have everything in moderation. And so now, after talking a little bit about what we're doing, what you should focus on in terms of Ayurvedic nutrition and how to incorporate it, remembering those 6 tastes, when we should eat, right? So Ayurvedic nutrition is not about just what we should eat, but it's also about when we should eat. Our digestion, it moves in sync with the sun. So in the morning, when sun rises, digestion is also rising. And our digestion is like a little fire. And when you just have a fire that's starting out, you feed it with little twigs, little dry leaves, branches, nothing too big and heavy. In the same manner, we should feed our digestion in the morning with very small, very warm, well-cooked, and light and easy to digest meals. Try not to overload your digestion first thing in the morning with a massive breakfast. I remember when I was growing up, my dad said, breakfast like a king. And I thought, yeah, okay, big breakfast, have whatever you want to eat and have a big breakfast. But no, Ayurveda says the opposite. Have a small breakfast to start off your day, just as your digestive fire is starting out. Your digestive fire is starting out just as the sun is rising. And then the sun hits its peak at noon, at midday. So we should have our biggest meal of the day at noon, because that's when our digestive fire is the strongest. So we're learning to use these natural rhythms of the body to our advantage. When you have a strong digestive fire, you're going to be able to break down a large meal very efficiently, very easily. So use this natural strength to your advantage and try and have the biggest meal of your day at lunchtime. And then, just as in the evening, the sun is setting, so is our digestion. So try and make your evening meal super light, warm, and a small amount. Don't go big and overboard on an evening meal. It's a little bit hard because our society has evolved to such a way that we work a 9-to-5 job and then we go home in the evening, and that's the time that we get with our families. And that's when we have a big meal, we sit down together and we enjoy it. But where you can, try to slowly and over time shift that focus on a big lunch. If you're not able to go home for a lunch, that's absolutely fine. Take a packed lunch with you, but make that the bulk of your day's meal, the bulk of your day's food. Have things that are heavier to digest at that time, like whole grains, proteins, fat, things like that. And then when you get back to your house in the evening, when you're with your family, it doesn't mean that you sit there and don't eat anything, but just have a smaller and a lighter meal. Maybe some vegetable soup, some steamed veggies, or just reducing the portion of what you eat. And when you go about to make this change in your life, don't do it all of a sudden. Do it gradually. Make small changes every day so that by the time a few months have passed since you've started implementing this, you don't even realize that, wow, now I'm having my lunch as the biggest meal. And just because you're not eating a big meal with your family, it doesn't mean you can't do anything with your family. Maybe you can use that time to go for an evening walk, play some board games, watch something, do something, engage with the other members of your family. So we've talked about what we should eat. We talked about when we should eat. Trying to eat trying to eat your biggest meal of the day at lunchtime when your digestive fire is strongest. The second thing, why we should eat. Now, often that sounds like a silly question, why we should eat. Of course, I know why I should eat. But our mind and our stomachs and our tongues often get confused in a little bit of a battle. Sometimes we eat because we look at our watch and we think, oh, it's 7:30 in the morning. I should have my breakfast because this is breakfast time. I should have my breakfast now because I know then otherwise I'm going to be late for work. But rather than having breakfast because it's breakfast time or because you're going to get late for work, try and think, am I really hungry? Do I feel this fire of digestion? Do I have this appetite from my stomach and not from my mind? So when you feel this digestion, this hunger from your stomach, that's when you should eat. Not because you're going to be late for something. Not because it's quote unquote breakfast time. You should eat because you're hungry from within your stomach. In the same way, sometimes we eat because we see something and our tongue wants it. And it happens a lot during festivals time. It happens a lot when we go out shopping and you might see some really delicious pastries or food or meals being cooked for you at restaurants or just, on the carts on the side of the road. And your tongue wants it, but ask yourself, does my stomach want it? I know around the world a lot during the lockdown, during COVID, a lot of people finding that they were just eating because they were bored, especially children. They'd be homeschooled all day and they'd constantly go up to their parents, Mom, Dad, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm hungry. It was happening every hour. Now, the children weren't associating food with hunger from their stomach. They were just associating food with boredom. So try and encourage your children, your loved ones that are of younger age, to learn to recognize hunger from their stomach and not feed them because it's a particular time or not feed them because they haven't had enough. Each person knows how much they need to eat to be full and satisfied. Especially coming from an Asian background, sometimes we tend to force our children to eat. Finish this, finish this, finish this. Rather than have a mentality of trying to get them to finish something because that's how much they should eat, listen to understand cues from your child. When a baby is young and they can't communicate with you, all they do is cry and that's it. When they don't want to eat, what do? They say stop. They're enough and they refuse food. They push the food away. They turn their mouth the other side. They stop eating. They stop drinking because they can understand that my body is full. My tummy is full. But as we grow up, we sort of corrupt that natural intelligence. We keep on eating because I need to finish this particular amount. We keep on eating because the meal looks so delicious. I don't want to waste it. We keep on eating for various reasons, even though our body is telling us that we're full. So try and listen out to these cues from your body and eat when you're hungry. And make the why you're eating only because you're hungry, not because there's something amazing that's been cooked for you. Where you eat. So we've covered what to eat, the 6 tastes. We've covered when to eat according to the sun. We've covered why to eat because you're hungry. Now let's move on to when to eat. Let's move on to where to eat. In this day of everything on the run, multitasking, we'll be, having a meeting while going for a walk or, driving here somewhere. It's very common for people to have breakfast on the go or to have dinner on the way back or let me quickly grab a bite to eat while I'm on an afternoon walk. When you're eating, make make that be the only thing that you do, right? So when we're eating, try not to do anything else during that meal. Don't watch TV during that meal. Don't be working during that meal. Sometimes we think, let me quickly have a working lunch. Let me have lunch on my desk so that means I can get home half an hour earlier. No, when you're eating, you should be doing it mindfully. We talk about mindfulness and so many other areas of our life. Let's bring mindfulness into eating. So when you're eating, just do that. Don't be going to work. Don't be on a walk. Don't be working. Don't be watching TV. Just be eating. So we'll recap a little bit about those few factors on Ayurvedic nutrition that are not just related to what you're eating. So we've talked about what you're eating in terms of the 6 tastes. We've talked about when you eat in terms of syncing your digestion with the sun. Why you should eat, because you're hungry, not because of any other reason. And where you should eat is you should eat just in one place, not while doing anything else. So I'll keep on going, but Vishwanjali, if there are any questions from anyone, please feel free to ask me, especially related to Ayurvedic nutrition, and then we can move on.
Just one question that here in the Philippines, a large amount of the year is in the rainy season. So would you suggest something specific for that season? And there is the second question. I'll tell you both the questions together. How do I know that my gut health is good? I mean, what are the subtle signs? Or should I wait till it is actually cracking down? I mean, generally, the person asking the question says that I generally realize it when it's probably too late. So what are the subtle signs for me to know that the gut health is not good?
Okay, perfect. So the first question, that it's rainy a lot in Philippines, so how you should eat accordingly. Now, think of the qualities and physical characteristics of rain. It's very wet, it's very damp. I'm assuming it's going to be a humid rain there, so it's not very cold, right?
You're right.
It's a humid rain. So especially think of those wet and damp qualities and focus on the opposite. So in Ayurveda, like increases like and opposites balance. So if you have a lot of excess of a particular quality in the environment around you, do the opposite in your life. Eat maybe more drying foods. Eat more slightly warming foods. Eat lighter foods. And that will help counteract that dampness, that wetness that's present everywhere around you. So rather than having too much dairy products, too many sort of moist and wet foods, focus on drying foods. Like you can roast your food to take away a lot of the air quality, to take a lot of the moisture. Grill your vegetables, roast your vegetables, as opposed to cooking them in water. When you're at home, doing things, even like a dry powder massage to counteract that quality in your in the environment. So you can get many different Ayurvedic herbal powders. Even if you don't have access to them, not to worry. If you get green mung in Philippines, or if you get barley in Philippines, just grind them together, grind some green mung or grind some barley and dry massage them over your upward direction. This will help sort of stimulate the lymphatic system and help counteract that excess moisture that's in the environment during rainy season. And look to your local and traditional diet. What is available in Philippines? Don't think that because I'm trying to be Ayurvedic, I need to eat fruits and vegetables that are from India. I need to eat particular grains that are quote unquote written in the texts. Look what's available in your local region. What's grown close to you? What do most of the local people eat? And not what they eat now, but what they ate maybe 50, 100 years ago. Because unfortunately, a lot of Eastern cultures are being influenced by the West in positive ways, but sometimes also in negative ways. You'll see the rise of fast food restaurants, chains, even a move from what we used to eat to burgers, chips, wraps, things like that. And if you ask grandparents, if you ask grandparents what they eat, it would look very different. So go back to your roots, not just in India, but also in the Philippines. What did your grandparents eat? Look at that and try to incorporate more of that into your diet. And the other question you asked was about, do we know that we have a good digestion? Because it's a good point. We don't want to turn to Ayurveda when things start to go downhill. We want to use Ayurveda to keep us in good health. So some signs of a good digestion, and in Ayurveda, good digestion means good health. So you want to have good digestion to prevent any other illnesses happening. So you have regular bowel movements, and regular bowel movements are at least once a day, up to 3 times a day. Again, everyone is different. For some people, 3 times a day is normal, but no less than once a day. You have an appetite, a proper hunger to eat. Sometimes people say, I don't feel hungry, right? So you have an appetite to eat. And again, this can be different for different people. Some people maybe feel hungry 5 times a day, and that's normal for them. Some people may be hungry twice a day, and that's good for them. Some people may be hungry 3 routine times a day. And to help build better digestion, stick to regular meal times according to what you can handle. I know for me, sometimes my tongue wants to eat more, but my stomach is happy with 2 meals a day. My tongue may want to eat 5 times a day, but I should listen to my stomach and not my tongue. You should have a clarity of mind. You shouldn't be lethargic or foggy-headed or can't think clearly. You should have a clarity of mind. You should be full of energy. These are the signs of good digestion. After you eat a meal, you should feel satisfied and content. Sometimes after a big celebratory meal or after a festival, we've eaten too much and we feel stuffed and we just sit there on the sofa and we can't move for the next 3 hours. That's not a sign of good digestion. That's a sign of we've eaten too much for the meal. So hopefully that helps answers those 2 questions about what to eat sort of in rainy season, and then also what we can eat, how we can recognize our digestion as well.
There's one more question, if you don't mind.
Of course.
So it is from the Indian community here in the Philippines. Mm-hmm. Philippines is a BPO destination, and most of the Indian community here works in the BPO sector. So the question is that many of us are on night shifts. And how do you think we can incorporate Ayurvedic principles to kind of not negate, but to balance the disadvantages of that kind of lifestyle?
Okay, that's a very good question. And honestly, it's a very difficult question as well, because working a night shift, and I'm going to be completely honest here, working a night shift it goes against our circadian rhythm. It goes against what we're meant to do as human beings. We should be sleeping and resting during the night, and we should be working during the day. But if you're put into a situation where you have no option but to work in the night, this is not to sort of, downplay it or anything like that. What can you do to mitigate the effects of a night shift? Be really good at what you eat around it, right? Just because you're in a night shift, plan your day. Before you go to work, have a light meal. Try and have the bulk of your meal at work when you have a break. So in Ayurveda, that, like I mentioned, that time of 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. when the sun is at its strongest, that's also when your pitta, or your fire of digestion, is at its peak. And that's why it's advised to have your biggest meal of the day around that noon time. But that heightened pitta also comes about again at nighttime, between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. Now that is meant to digest and process the thoughts, the experiences that we had throughout the day when we're sleeping. But if you have to work a night shift, try and have your biggest meal between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. Because then also, while working the remainder of your shift, you'll have burnt off most of that food. So when you come home, have a small light meal, maybe just a warm drink, and then go to sleep. So you're not overloading your digestion with having to work while your body is resting. Because when you sleep, that's what you should just be doing, just sleeping, resting, not your body shouldn't be working hard at digesting what you've eaten. So one thing I would say is have a really strict and good eating schedule, a light meal before you start work, a big meal at work, and then a light meal when you get home. The second thing I would say is where you can, encourage your sleep. Encourage that time before your sleep to be as technology free as possible. So when you get home in the morning from your night shift, don't go on your phone to check all your latest messages, to check Instagram or YouTube or Facebook. Try to create a really calm and relaxing environment to help you with a restful and calm sleep. So maybe, like I said before, have a warm drink, a warm shower or bath, keep screens away, read a book, and go to sleep. And keep as much of that life of night shift as routine as possible. Try not to vary it too much. Just because you feel I'm sleeping during the day, let me make the most of, sometimes you feel like I'll only sleep a little bit so I can actually do stuff during the day. No, your body needs adequate rest. So don't negate that rest because you're sleeping during the day when everything else is open. You might think that the shops are open, let me go do my shopping. This is open, that's open, let me get this done so I don't have to worry about it, missing the hours. But maybe make one day a week where, half a day in the afternoon where you do your shopping, and then the rest of the time, try and get that rest in as much as possible.
Thanks a lot.
No worries. Any other questions?
That's it for now.
Okay, perfect. So I'm just going to wrap up a little bit. I mentioned about the 6 tastes. And I also want to talk very, very briefly about how they affect our emotions and, what we can do to sort of, how we can see the two in conjunction in our life. So like I said, that sweet taste is very much it's all about that love, that contentment, that satiety. When you're referring to a loved one, you'll say sweetie, you'll say honey, won't say like chili or pepper or call them something like that. So this is the significance of sweet taste. It's associated with feelings of love, contentment, care, compassion, satisfaction. So when you're eating that sweet taste, yes, you're fulfilling certain physiological needs in your body, but you're also satisfying emotion, those emotions of love and contentment. So on the same token, if you feel like you're eating a lot of sweet or you're eating too much sweet, look at how you can satisfy that emotion of love, contentment, satisfaction with something other than food. The sour taste, it sort of aids concentration and sharpening the intellect. So when you are lacking clarity in your life, when you are difficulty making decisions, maybe look to incorporating a little bit of sour taste in your diet. Maybe you're not having enough sour foods. At the same hand, if you find that you're being overly discriminating or you're being very, very sharp in your judgments, in how you think, and in a negative way, it's not something that is it's a nice sun here in England today, but not helpful for my video. But let's try this. Okay, perfect. So if you find yourself being overly critical and discriminating, maybe take out some of that sourness from your diet and look to other ways just to sort of mitigate it a bit. The salty taste, like I mentioned before, it enhances the flavor of foods, and it lifts your spirit. It sparks, that interest in life. So if you have too much of that quality of greed, attachment, possessiveness, you can be having too much salty food. Work on decreasing some of the salt in your diet. The pungent or the spicy taste gives that drive. It gives that motivation, energy. people say that spice of life, she's a little firecracker. They have this strong nature to sort of go and get things done. And that's brought about that spicy or that pungent taste. So if you feel like you want a bit of zest in life or a little bit of motivation, enthusiasm to accomplish your ambitions and passions, have a little bit of spicy. But in the same token, if you're experiencing too much drive, if you're experiencing burnout, if you're experiencing anger, violence, hatred, don't have so many spicy foods. Cut down on the spice. Bitter is the exact opposite of sweet. You know, when you think of something bitter, you need something sweet afterwards to balance out those tastes. But bitter is something that we need. You know, people talk about the bitter truth. You say something that needs to be said. Maybe someone doesn't want to hear it, but they need to hear it. We all need someone we all need a friend in our lives or a family member that tells us what we need to hear rather than just what we want to hear. So normally we will have in our diets a deficiency in bitter. So make sure you're having some of that bitter taste. And in the same token, if you have too many bitter foods, it can end up with dissatisfaction or isolation in your mind. You know, you're so bitter at everything. You don't want to be with people. So cut back on some of those bitter foods. And the last taste is astringent, which is a supporting and sort of grounding element, which sort of brings everything together. And if you have too much of the astringent taste, it can bring sort of insecurity and anxiety, depression, or absent-mindedness, so a little bit of introversion. So if you feel like that you have some of these qualities in you of insecurity, it doesn't mean you have to completely cut out astringency in your diet. You could mitigate that through other lifestyle factors, but it's also good to know what these tastes are associated with emotionally, so you can sort of pinpoint, what am I feeling? What should I be doing? How can I use my food to better improve my mood? So with that, I'm going to end it there. Thank you so much for having me and for helping me to share a little bit about Ayurveda. Ayurveda, again, don't look at it as this huge thing that I can't incorporate, that's too difficult for me. Look at it as something that you can take bits and pieces of Ayurveda, take it under the guidance of an Ayurvedic practitioner or doctor. You can use it at a time in your life when you're healthy to remain healthy. You can use it at a time in your life when you're unwell and you need to get better. Ayurveda works beautifully in both respects. It is helpful in preventing ill health, but at the same time, it is also very, very helpful and powerful in managing disease and treating it. So don't disregard Ayurveda for either in your life. You can approach an Ayurvedic practitioner or book to help you stay healthy. And if things are seriously ill and you're not sure what's going on, definitely seek out the advice of an Ayurvedic doctor to help you before things get worse. I hope you've been able to take away something with this little talk, and you will continue being open to Ayurveda and being open to adopting and implementing some of its principles throughout your life, and helping your friends and family also with adopting a little bit of Ayurveda in your life as well. So Vishvanjali, I'll hand it back over to you. If there are any other questions, please feel free to ask. But other than that, thank you again for having me.